and they said, okay, we see there's damage, but we're gonna do a repair. Then I proved it matches statute state, and I sent everything to them.
Oh yeah, that's right. You guys are matching
Right.
states.
So then they go, okay, well, we agree that we're going to replace the roof. Here's our number. I had already sent them money, okay? So mine was 33,000. So they send me, this is hysterical. It's just what you just said.
I can see the sheer joy on this man's face right
They
now.
sent me, they broke it down, they said $28,030, right? So what did I send them back? Woo.
It's a good start.
So I sent them, I said this, hi Trevor, I looked at the estimate, I see things missing from your estimate. I will try to do what you are prescribing at this moment.
That's a man after my own heart.
If I
right
can't
here.
do it as prescribed, as long as you know, we will have to revisit this if we can't do as prescribed.
Gosh, that sounds
You
like
can send the money, we can get started.
Related to this
right?
guy. I know I'm
You can send the money, we get started. Thanks. Ready?
Hold on, you can
That's
send the money
verbatim.
back at me. Hold on, wait.
Like he heard that
Hold
somewhere
on. How did you end it?
I
What's the
said,
last?
you can send the money so we can get started. Thanks. Ready? They came back at $32,000, $1,000 off. They jumped up to,
Rib pain on that.
Did they mail the check?
and they're gonna mail payment. They said, we're sorry, we have SimSol, we don't have Xactimate, we're looking for this, for that. Can you do the job for 32? Absolutely.
Yeah, that's how it has to work out with the SimSol.
Yeah. That just happened sitting here after you said, I got one.
Let me try it. Cha-ching.
Oh my god, I love the way you wrote that email, man. That was badass.
That's perfect. Oh, I got another one. I got another one.
You send the money so we can get
I can't
started.
wait to use this. Water saturated underalignment.
Just to refresh from what we talked about this morning, we are a couple of components that are extremely important. It's really, in my mind, no success can be had without having that very, very detailed and thorough inspection. And so I don't think you can do these things in 20, 30 minutes. I really don't. I think it's best to schedule yourself with a block of 2 hours or more. Myself, I'm gonna take a minimum of 300 pictures on any job that I go to. Any job, like even if it's just a simple little roof, I'm taking 300 photos at a minimum. And so the foundation really is that inspection, because I can't have better sales with the client without that real detailed inspection. That's going to help me establish myself as the expert. So if I spend the time with that inspection, where no one else is going to be more knowledgeable about that job than me, that's going to help me get my approval and get my sales, right? And I'm going to go over a little bit about that, more about the inspection. But essentially, and I think most of your sales staff here, and if I understand correctly, you're really just going out. Your responsibility is to go out, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your responsibility is to go out and scope it, right? You got to meet with the client. You have to, have that initial inspection with the client. You have to sell the job to the client. You're having to meet with the adjusters, right? You're going out and meet with the adjusters, and you're kind of like the main contact person all the way throughout. But you're gathering the documentation, and then aren't you bringing it back in, and then someone else is doing the actual estimates and billing? Is that how it's working? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
Man, that is the perfect setup. That is the perfect setup. It really is. I gotta tell you, like, I work with a lot of different companies. I have thousands of contractors that I've gotten to know through the years. And that really is how I advise them to do it, is to really build out your own internal supplementing staff, your process on the inside of your company, like someone that's going to take and interpret the documentation and translate it into Xactimate, submit it to the insurance company, relentlessly follow up with the insurance companies, try to, send them invoices, supplementing paperwork to try to collect for you. So the sales staff can do what they're brought in to really do, which is sell. Sell, because I think time is money. So if you don't have to worry about, sitting down and spending 8 hours in front of your computer and building the actual Xactimate estimate, somebody else has to do that, man, that is beautiful. That is so awesome. But it would be even better if you would spend, because that's your only role is the sales, if you would spend more time loving the one you're with, more time with that client and more time on that inspection to gather up more documentation for the other staff to be able to use. Because they're going to be able to have way better success. Like thinking of my story earlier, how I was doing the virtual estimating, and I was relying on contractors to send me all of their information. That was the flaw, right? Because I didn't have good documentation, so I couldn't write a good estimate, and I couldn't get a good approval. Like I couldn't prove the line items in my estimate to get higher success with the adjusters. So I've never been one to claim that I'm, like undefeated. I'm not undefeated in this game that I like to play with insurance restoration and the supplementing game with the insurance adjusters. I'm not undefeated, but what I do is focus on high winning percentages. So if you think about a sports team, like in this area, Patriots are a good example. However you feel about the Patriots, I always respect their winning percentage over a long period of time, man. I mean, it's never been, they've not been the perfect team, but they're always won, and they've not really had all the superstar athletes, but they've always focused on the fundamentals of their game plan, right? The blocking, attack, like all the little things, like no fumbles, and just all the little tiny things that everybody has to focus on. It seems like they focus on the little things better than everybody. And so, as a result, their winning percentages are higher. And so for me, I just like to check off the box in every category. The inspection, documentation, the proof. Gather up the evidence for my investigation, my case, if you will, and then submit it to the prosecutor. I guess you're the prosecutor, right? You're the prosecutor. You're the one that follows up with invoices.
Yeah, she's the prosecutor.
And then so,
New name now.
From there, now listen, here's the
Much
thing.
nicer than what I'm normally called.
I think everybody's always looking for like the magic bullet from me. They're looking for, you were asking earlier about the flashing, you're like, yeah, they're not buying that. They're pushing back on that too. I bet they are. They are going to push back on everything. No matter how perfect you are, no matter how good you play your game, they're always going to resist. They're not doing their job if they don't resist, right? Like they're just, something's wrong. It's rare that they ever approve my estimates 100%. It does happen occasionally, but it's very rare. Usually it's, my estimate's way up here, we end up somewhere here, but there's a lot of money in between. Whenever they do approve it 100%, I'm like, oh man, what did I do wrong? What did I leave?
What did I leave out?
I left something on the table. We're looking at the investigation, the inspection. Also, because we're more thorough, we're finding more items. So we're building our estimate, aren't we? So our estimate ends up being much higher. And I don't ever focus on price. For me, I don't like to focus on price. It's maybe a weakness of mine. Like, I don't know what roofs go for per square in this area. I don't focus on that at all. I don't know what they go for in my area. I don't care what they go for. And by the way, anybody that says that you want to be near a certain rate per square, or if an adjuster says to you, we only pay this much per square on roofing, or if a client comes to you and they want to know where you're at per square on your roofing, that is a flawed question in my mind. Like, if you're running your business only on how much you charge per square, which I think maybe even most roofing contractors across America, that's actually how they run their business. It's wrong. It's dead wrong. And let me explain. You have roof A and roof B, side by side, identical roofs, okay? Identical in size is what I mean. So both of them 30 squares exactly. Same price, right? Wrong, because roof A has 288 linear feet of drip edge. Roof B only has 140 linear feet. Roof A has 145 feet of valley. Roof B doesn't have any valleys. Roof A has a big chimney. Roof B doesn't have any chimney. Roof A has 12 pipe jacks. Roof B has 8 pipe jacks. You with me so far? We can keep going with this. Skylights and step flashing and other types of sidewall flashing, right? Gutter guards, ridge caps, high profile. I mean, come on, we cannot charge the same price per square in roofing. It just doesn't work that way. So for me, I don't like to focus on price at all. Whenever I do estimates, I don't even really think about the price. I miss it a lot, you know. But I think adjusters are the same way. We think about line items. So we're just trying to gather more line items. And by default, I know that if I get more line items on that estimate, my estimate is going higher, is it not? But guess what happens? The approval ends up higher. You see what I mean? So the inspection, yes, the inspection helps you to start from a higher position and you'll end up at a higher position. So if you start, I've had clients say, hey Chad, can you write this estimate a little lower? You know, like I don't want to hit them this hard on this one, the adjuster's super cool. Can you get it down to 25? I'm like, no, you don't want to do that, because if I take it down to 25, guess what? He's still going to try to push you down from there. You know, so you're starting from a lower position and still ending up at a lower position. So what I like to do is to have a more, so Chad, it sounds like you're just throwing as much as you can at the wall hoping for it to stick. Maybe in a roundabout way, but if I am, it's done very strategic and sophisticated. It's accurate. I never want to put anything on an estimate that's not accurate, ever. I want to be able to back it up with documentation, evidence, and proof. That's the other reason why I got to do a good inspection. I keep saying that about the inspection, so just to recap from there, okay? Now, this is so crucial, guys. This is monumental, but yet so simple. So it's very hard to forget. You know, I'm going to say it a lot from here, though. The reason why you're hired, like the thing that you're contractually obligated to do, okay? The task that you are hired to do is to perform all repairs that are prescribed by the insurance claim. That's your job. I'll repeat it, because I know it's so complicated, right? You are hired as the contractor. Let me add that in. You are hired as the contractor to perform all repairs that are prescribed by the insurance company. Okay, so if I show up to an insurance adjuster appointment with the adjuster, and I first get there, and I introduce myself, I'm Chad from Armor Shield Companies. Don't mind me, I'm just here because we're the contractor that was hired to perform all the repairs that you prescribe. So I'm just here to get my marching orders from you. You're the boss, right? I am just there to get my instruction list from the adjuster. Does that make sense? Can you really dispute that? You're doing it for the total RCV, right? I mean, am I inaccurate by saying that? So the beauty about that, this is why it becomes so simple, is that if I write on my estimate has new chimney flashing because the chimney has damage. And the code says that it's illegal to do without, like we were talking about earlier, right? And I show them pictures of that chimney flashing, of the holes in the chimney flashing, along with the building code snippets showing that all flashing must be replaced when rusted, damaged, or deteriorated, right? And the adjuster says, and why do they usually push back on that? Give me a couple of their rebuttals. Play Mr. Adjuster.
It wasn't,
Mr. Adjuster.
it wasn't caused by the wind.
Huh?
This flashing was not damaged because of the wind.
Not damaged because of the wind. Got it. Anything else?
Yeah, they tell us a lot that the stuck flashing is not going to get damaged when we rip it off.
When we
can
rip it off.
Reuse it, yeah.
You can reuse it. Loving it so far. I love it. I love it. Right? So again, it's not going to get damaged during the process, right? But it already is damaged. The code doesn't say that it has to be damaged by wind or by hail, because I get that a lot too. We don't see, I see that on hail, because usually it shows on the soft metals, right? And they're like, well, there's no, we didn't see, we have photos of all the flashing, we didn't see any hail damage to the flashing. I'll say, oh, I'm sorry, let me check this code again. Oh yeah, no, I'm looking at the code again. You know, let me refer you to it, it's on page 32. It actually doesn't say anything about hail damage. It says damage, rusted, damaged, deteriorated, okay? So now, the problem, who's giving you that problem? The adjuster?
Adjusters, yeah.
Which adjuster?
The adjuster on scene.
The original field adjuster,
The
right?
DA also.
Yeah, the desk adjuster as well.
No, the DA.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do too.
So if it's the field adjuster, i.e. the pawn in this game that I like to play, okay? So this field adjuster is a pawn, okay? Like they don't serve a lot of purpose in my game. You know, but listen, they do serve a purpose. There's a lot that I'm going to get from the adjuster, but I'm going to get most of my results, probably most of the time, from either the desk adjuster or from whoever the adjuster is that they send out for the re-inspect, or the desk adjuster after the re-inspect, okay? I say that because my estimates are usually much higher than the original field adjuster estimates. So most of those aren't getting bought by the desk adjuster. They're having to send somebody out first and reevaluate the whole thing, because there's a whole bunch of new items that they never even saw the first time around. So when you have new damage, you usually have to send somebody else. So now the field adjuster, first, why are they so bad? I just want to spend a couple minutes with this. Why are adjusters so bad, you know, as a whole? Because it seems like, man, these adjusters are really aggravating to work with, you know? I mean, maybe they're good people and they're nice and all. Maybe they're not. I think most of them are, though. I think most of the time, aren't they, though? Most of the time, they're pretty decent people. But for whatever reason, they can't pay for this, they can't pay for that, you know. And so I like to go out there and try to get them to pay for as much as humanly possible, okay? And try to influence that as much as possible with documentation or with reason and logic. But push them all the way to where I can get them to go, to where they won't go any further, and then back off, okay? Because again, I'm just there to do whatever they prescribe. So back to the flashing. If they say that it can't be done for whatever reason, okay, I'll tell you what. Because when is this happening? When is this happening? Before you build it, right? When you first go out there the first time, it hasn't been built yet. So during this process, you need to understand that everything is hypothetical. Everything. It's all just one big fantasy. Everything's hypothetical. We don't know what it's really gonna take until we build, okay? So we're in the estimate process. When we build, we're in the invoice process. It's no longer fantasy, it's no longer a hypothetical, it's an actual, because then we know exactly what it's gonna take, because we're building, right? Does that make sense? But before we build, no one really knows what it's gonna take. The adjuster doesn't know, we don't know what it's gonna take. Perfect example, waste factors, right? They like to argue about waste factors. Oh no, can't give you that much waste factor, it's already included in the waste. Can't give you rich starter, it's already included in the waste. Or can't give you 5% on gable and 10% on it, you know, whatever they say, okay?
So you can't give waste on an Xactimate on sheathing? I got that yesterday.
On what?
On sheathing.
Sheathing, I still do put
Yeah,
it,
we
you're not
tried
really
too,
supposed to,
but
but I
they-
still do.
Yeah, they made me take it out yesterday.
Yeah. So, but start higher, end up higher, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was it a hip?
So, but waste, my waste factors are probably too high on my estimates. I put a ton of waste in there, and bridge, and starter, right? Start from a higher position, end up in a higher position. And they usually are like, no, can't do it. And I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do? What would you like me to do? Would you like me to take the waste down and keep the ridge and starter in? Or take the ridge and starter out, take the waste, keep the waste out? What would you like me to do? Want me to take them both out? I don't really care. Because I'm wrong about the waste factor, the adjuster's wrong about the waste factor, all of you guys are wrong about the waste factor, because no one knows anything about the waste factor until we build. So if I say it's 18.5%, by whatever method I use to get there, even if it's a very sophisticated method that I'm using to get there, might come close, but it's not going to be perfect. We don't know how much waste factor there really is going to be until we build. So, okay, I'll tell you what, Mr. Adjuster, would you like to take them both out? That's cool with me. As long as you're willing to pay for what it actually takes at the time. As long as you're willing to revisit this, we're cool. Put on there whatever you want to put on there. And then they send out the check, right? For a lower amount than you want it to be, for a lower estimate than you wanted it to be. But are we settling with that check? No. Like, we're taking that check off the table, and then we're hitting them again. Because that's the beauty about insurance work. Like, anything that comes up during the process gets covered. If it's an accurate item, it gets covered. So who cares? Like, so how many times do I gotta go back and supplement? As many times as it takes. And how many times can you go back and supplement? As many times as it takes. A claim, you call them up, way down the road, like you call them up, hey, got more. Oh no, that claim is closed. Okay, great, reopen it, please. Because a claim is never actually closed until all the repairs have been made and paid for. So you just keep on. So, okay, I'll tell you what. You don't think that detaching the gutter is going to be required on this particular job when we know that the drip edge has to be replaced and we can see that it's nailed directly through the drip edge on this particular job? You don't think that's going to be required? Okay, great. I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a try. How's that sound? I'll tell you, I'm willing to take it off the estimate right now as long as you're willing to revisit this issue and it's no longer hypothetical and becomes an actual. How's that sound? You see, so it's great because you get to play sort of the counterpuncher and you get to let the game come to you. Let them come to you. I'm not a proponent of going out and meet with the adjuster and having my estimate ready and hitting them with my estimate and and all that right up front. I'm not at all. I like to go out and see what they have to say first. I don't want to tell them what I'm thinking. I like to go out and see what they have to say, and then gently nudge them to what I've also found. Like again, I'm there like, but remember how I look? I've got the camera, I'm real humble, real like, oh, I'm not here to be in your way, but I got the camera and I'm all suited up and I look like I might kill him. He's looking over, he's looking over his shoulder at me, So I look like a professional assassin when I'm there. And you know what? I have that confidence and I know what I'm doing and I feel like I'm an elite special forces assassin, to be quite frank. You know what I mean? And so like, what do I do for a living? Where do I start? You know what I mean? Like, I'm very excited about what I do for a living. I'm real proud of my profession, you know? And so I think if you go into it with that mindset, instead of just like, I'm a roofing contractor, you know? Yeah, you and everybody else, you know, there's so much competition. And so you have to find ways to set yourself apart from the competition to begin with, right? So, why are adjusters so bad? I started to talk about that earlier. Okay, adjusters. You think about, most of these field adjusters are independent adjusters. Some are staff adjusters. You know, there's different types of adjusters that you're coming into contact with, and you don't really ever know what their deal is. But most of the time, the situation is such that they actually get paid and or get credit when the claim is closed, okay? And usually their pay is based on the amount of the claim. Sometimes they get paid on hourly. It's complicated. Depends on who they work for. Sometimes they get like a certain flat fee when the claim is between this amount and this amount, right? And if it moves up to the next position on the scale between this amount and this amount, they get bumped up to a higher flat fee, right? They have to do re-inspect, it's a separate amount, yeah. So, but usually, maybe their staff adjuster doesn't work that way as far as their pay, but they get credit. Some of their bonus structures are based on closing out claims and based on dollar amounts that they dealt with. So just have to kind of usually think of it though, a rule of thumb in my mind, they're getting paid based on the amount of the claim and when it gets closed. When does it get closed? How do they determine that? Like I said, it's always open. So in their mind, it's closed when that payment's issued, okay? So the field adjuster, that original field adjuster, I never want to send my supplement to that field adjuster, ever, okay? Sometimes there might be a couple little things where they're like, hey, send me this or send me that, and you believe that you can get it out of them, so you don't want to escalate it up to the next level. That's great. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about going in with your estimate being much higher and trying to get the field adjuster to approve it after they've already written one that was much lower. Never send the estimate to that field adjuster. Because if you do, especially if they haven't even been paid on it yet, and they're waiting on that product, and you get in there and you send your estimate, you could be messing with their money. Think about that. You know, you're calling them up at the wrong, you know, bothering them about certain things, and they're just sitting there waiting on the check. They're thinking it's done. So in my mind, let them get the money. Let them get their money. Then move on to the next step. It's real simple. You know, so
ask them.
Huh?
Hey, get paid on this check yet?
I like
Just let
that.
you know, we got a supplement coming.
I mean, there's other ways to find out. You know, a lot of times if you call State Farm and just find out what adjuster it's assigned to, most insurance companies will give that information. If it's not assigned to the same person, sometimes they might get paid and still assigned to it, you know, but I always send my supplements to the inside, you know, and begin at the inside. Even when the guy's still on the claim, I'm still going to the inside, you know, and sometimes like with Allstate, you send it to the inside, he gets copied on it. I had this one lady one time said, hey, can you please stop sending to the inside every time? Because my boss is getting a copy of them every time. I'm like, yeah, I got that. He said, I know. That's a good thing. You know, I like to keep everything on the record. But now with adjusters, knowing that they're paid that way, when they first become adjusters, they have dollar signs in their minds, most of them. And you don't get to become an adjuster usually and just start working for some big insurance company as a desk adjuster. It doesn't work that way. Or, you know, you really can't go to work on staff most of the time for a big insurance company. You usually have to go pay your dues, which means you have to go be an independent adjuster somewhere for some independent adjusting firm, and you have to go through some sort of deployment, is what they call it, right? Where there's a big hailstorm somewhere and they need adjusters there. And they bring in adjusters from everywhere, and you got to go out of town somewhere. Hurricane, like we were talking about before. And you got to go out and have one of those or a couple of those under your belt first. Now, when you're thinking about, you're around waiting, you go through your quick little adjuster course, you learn how to use the Xactimate. You buy up your little gadgets, Some of these guys have little desks that they build in their, vans and stuff that I've seen. I've seen some pretty cool stuff from adjusters. And one guy, I remember he showed up and his wife was in the back typing out the Xactimate. He just ran around the house and did the inspection. But then they sort of wait to deploy. Right? I used to have these guys working for me sometimes during that period. They're like, I'm working for you until there's a big storm. Like, okay, we'll be doing sales. But they would wait until a storm hits, and then they'd head out and go and work that storm. And they're thinking, oh man, I'm gonna make hundreds of thousands of dollars because I know I can do these inspections real quick. I know how fast I can write Xactimate estimates, right? And they go out there and they do the inspections like they were taught, they do the estimates like they were taught, and they start sending them back in, and they're already adding up the dollar signs in their mind, knocking out claim after claim after claim. Then all of a sudden, these claims start getting kicked back down. Why? Because we don't pay for this, we don't pay for this, we don't pay for that, we don't pay for this. So now they have to rewrite it, and their money's delayed, it's lower, okay? And also, if they don't close it out fast enough, they'll take a bunch of their claims from them, give them to somebody else. So they're out there using their own credit card to pay for hotels and gas and food and all that, closing out these claims, only to find out they're being kicked back down. Then they find out the real name of the game is not being thorough and diligent and quality, it's speed. And they even tell them, don't worry if you miss anything, we have a process for that. We have cleanup teams for the supplementing stuff. Do you realize, and that's what we're taught, right? You think about the adjuster standing in the foyer with your client and saying, okay, I've done the inspection, here's your estimate, you're gonna get a check for this, and if anything comes up, let us know. What's that called? A supplement. That's what it's called. I mean, so if anything comes up, let us know. They're taught to do this, but do you realize that the amount of claims actually supplemented are like this? Like the percentage is so small. It's tiny. We just think that everybody supplements. They don't. Most people just take their word for it. It's the craziest thing to me. That's why my whole career is based on that one single fact. So the amount of claims that actually supplement are very, 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 very tiny. So, but the adjusters taught, if you miss something, don't worry, we have someone to pay for that. So they realize the name of the game is speed, knock them out quick. If we miss something, it's not that big of a deal. I don't feel like I'm shorting the client. Somebody else will take care of that. We have to close claims, get them some money, get them going. They think they're doing a good thing. So why are adjusters so bad? That's why. But anyway, I'm going to meet with that adjuster, the field adjuster, see what they think. They're never going to inspect every room, closet, hallway. It's very rare that they want to do that, or go up and check the attic, or go and inspect every inch of every elevation and every piece of the fence and all of that like I'm going to do. I know they're not. Like if I'm not there, but if they're supposed to. So if I'm there with them, right this way, right this way, right this way. Like, so at first I'm real humble, real just, don't mind me, I'm just here to see really what you have to say, because I have to do the job and I have to do what you say. So I won't know what the scope is unless I hear what you have to say, right? And you follow them around, and then you let them know that you've already inspected everything, and by the way, you use Xactimate. And sometimes they'll say, can you send me the ESX file? That's the Xactimate data file. And there is an advantage to doing that. But we first want to see what they have to say. We want to agree on that scope. We want to show them all the damage that we found. I've had adjusters say, man, this is the longest appointment I've ever had to do. Do you know Del Medico? Yep. I inspected his house in Orlando and met with this adjuster for him. And that adjuster had to leave and go do another appointment and come back. Because I just kept one more room, one more area, just wanted to show you, And so just I'm not here to tell you how to do your job, but maybe ask them, are you aware of the building codes in this area? Yeah, we're in the city of such and such, and they're using the 2018 State of Connecticut code, which adopts the 2015 IRC. Are you familiar with that at all? I was in Orlando after Hurricane Irma, and I was on this roof, and this guy just got there from Kansas City. He had this KC Royals hat on, I'll never forget. And we're sitting there on the roof, and I go, now, curious, man, you just got here, State Farm. You just got here, they give you guys like a crash course, like on codes? Because I know it's way different, in Missouri than it is here in Florida. He's like, no, like, there's none of the codes are gonna come into play on this. And I'm like, whoa, like everything's code on this job. I'm like, okay, gotcha, so I'll try to maybe gently, maybe even pull up the thing and show, maybe educate the adjuster. That's a good thing, man. You're making the world a better place. I bet adjusters are like, I educated a regional manager one time. He's like, well, I never knew that about whatever it was. Imagine the impact that had for a regional manager to all of a sudden realize, oh crap, we've been doing this wrong the whole time. We've been hosing our clients, So if you can educate them a bit, and sometimes you might have to educate the building department even. Like the building department doesn't even know what they're doing sometimes. So then you can make the world a better place. So I'm just gonna try to maybe gently show the adjuster maybe code-related items or new damage and plead my case in a gentle, diplomatic, professional, humble manner. I'm not gonna get in a big knockdown, drag-out fight with the adjuster. I can have a little art. If he's being a dick, then I might have some words with them, you know what I mean? But I'm gonna maintain my professionalism because I still wanna win, It's not gonna help me at all to be a jerk back to him, So I'm just gonna let him do his thing. If they're being, that's kind of rare in my experience, because I'm never out there being harsh on them, so I'm not provoking them to be that way with me, so for them to be that way, they really are unreasonable. And then there's other ways to get them off the claim, to get another adjuster on it. So that's just, in my opinion, that's just removing the player from the field, Other than that though, I'm gonna try to educate them, try to get them as far as they're gonna go, and then where they're not willing to go, then I'm gonna give them the excuse that they need to get off the hook with me. Like they really needed that, but it'd be something like, okay, I understand, so I'm assuming that the flashing, like you're saying that the nail holes aren't damaged already, and the code means that you have to have wind damage, something like that. Because if you were to put it on there, I think what you're saying is you want to, but it's your boss, like they would kick it back down if you were to do that, right? I kind of do that for, and they're like, exactly. I'm like, well then, I don't want you to put that on there, and I wouldn't if that were true. I wouldn't want them to put that on there, because that would just delay everything anyway, so by all means, don't put that on there. But if it is required, I'm going to supplement, like I'm just letting you know. But the adjuster doesn't care, so I'm willing to remove that from the equation now, as long as you're willing to revisit this at a later time when we're actually building. You see what I mean? So then it's not a hypothetical anymore. It's not a fantasy anymore. And if I ask that to adjusters 10 times out, if I said fair enough, they're going to say, yeah, fair enough. And the reason is because now they're not the adjuster that's going to be dealing with that later. 9 times out of 10. Occasionally, rarely, you might have that same adjuster, cradle to the grave. Or in certain areas, in some companies might have the same dude that it gets kicked to for something. I get that. Don't beat me up, I get it. But I'm saying 9 times out of 10, you have the field adjuster that you meet with, and then it's somebody totally different if there's going to be a re-inspect or a desk adjuster. And I've had people say, are you worried about getting blacklisted? Absolutely not. Those are the people that are putting stuff on that's like outside of the industry standards, that are not reasonable, that are not accurate, right? And I don't at all ever encourage anyone to ever do that, ever. Again, accuracy is the best method because you can prove it. You don't have to worry about it at all. You have the documentation to prove it. And so I'm going to push that initial adjuster to pay for as many things as I possibly can get them to pay for. And if they ever say, like if they meet with me and maybe do the estimate later, and they call me up and they say, hey, I just sent over an estimate to your email, let me know if you agree to that, and I'll get a check out in the mail. Anybody ever heard that one? Yeah. Okay, well I'll tell you what, this is what I was every time, because in our world, like in the policy world, there's a term undisputed cash, which just means that that we agreed that you owe me, or I agree that you owe me at least that much, okay? If it goes above that, that may be the disputed part, but the undisputed part is, I agree that you owe me at least that amount, right? And so I don't say that, because that's legal terminology and policy coverage type stuff. What I say is, well, I can't agree to anything, so I'll tell you what though, go ahead and send it over to me, and because we're gonna need to vet that, send it through our estimating. You guys can say that truthfully. It's gotta go through the estimating department. It's gotta go through other staff management, right? So I can't agree to anything, okay? But I'll tell you what, go ahead and send the money. Send the money. Send the money. Okay? Go ahead and send the money. And if anything comes up, let you know. How's that sound? See, because I was hired to perform all repairs that are prescribed by the insurance claim. You see what I mean? So I can't agree to anything. So go ahead and send the money. Send the money. Because right now it's just an estimate. We don't know what it's going to actually take. So you never agree to anything. So with that in mind, what do you have to lose? What do you really have to lose? So anything that they want to turn down for any reason, okay, I'll give that a shot. It's not really, in my mind, difficult at all until after you've built and they're still taking that position. Does that make sense? So the thing that you guys really want to focus on is with that field adjuster, at some point, I'm gonna want the supplementing staff and the estimating staff, their game plan's gonna be a bit different. But if you understood that, they're gonna basically, everything that the adjuster wants to take off the estimate, they're gonna have to respond to them one of three ways: the A bucket, B bucket, C bucket. The A bucket is basically saying, okay, no problem, I'll take that off. I agree to that. By the way, we're gonna have the estimate filled with those types of items, like remove ridge vent, remove ridge cap, remove shingles. You know what I mean? Like there's plenty of little items that they can haggle with there. And but if you added them up, they don't really equal that much money. You know, so I actually like to have some items that are small. Again, we're not thinking price. That's the flaw that I have and that adjusters have. We're not thinking about the price. We're just thinking about line items. So if I knock off 10 of them right at the top of the estimate for them, and they feel like they're winning, you know, when really it's only a few $100. You see what I mean? So A bucket is that, whereas the B bucket is, oh no, I can't take that off the estimate. Let me show you why. That's on page 32 because of that code right there. Or the damage is shown on page 37 through 42. Like it's all in the report. The estimate that gets submitted to the insurance company is the PDF Xactimate estimate, then the building code snippets, then all of the images that were collected on the job. So how well you get those images is going to come up at that point. If they have the proof, they can refer the adjuster now. Otherwise, it's, okay, we'll have to send them to you when I get them, and then you've lost that adjuster, because that was a desk adjuster. And if I call back the next day, I got to go through a different desk adjuster. And the different desk adjuster doesn't have any idea what the first adjuster was even requiring you to do. You might have made notes, but still, you follow me? So like if you can get a handle, time is money, time is money, time is money. If you can get a handle on that one shot on that call, because the B bucket is, nope, I've got the proof, it's on page such and such, right? Whereas the C bucket is, okay, well I'll tell you what, we believe that's going to be required, okay? But our job is just to do whatever you prescribe, okay? So go ahead and send the money. You know, like we're willing to withhold that item from the estimate this time. As long as you're willing to revisit this issue when we build, okay? When it's no longer a hypothetical and it's an actual. But I understand that if that's the case, I'm gonna have to have proof, right? Like I'm gonna have to have documentation to prove why that is. So then we're thinking about during the build. I don't know what kind of process you guys have during the build, but that's where a lot of the gold is, man. Like if you can't, let's say you had some guy that said it had to be damaged during the tear-off. Maybe it was drip edge or some other thing. They're trying to pay you for detach and reset. then you know that you have to replace it, because you know you can't do it without damaging the item. But the only way to really prove that is by going through the motion and actually doing it. You believe it so much, prove it. You see? So like, but you have to be there during the job to document that. But if you did, TKO, you know what I mean? They are done. They're not coming out of that. See, they don't have the advantage to go and build with you. They're not going to be there during the build. They're not going to take the time to go there and build, take pictures. You ever seen an adjuster do that? They're not going to do that. They rarely go after the fact. They don't want to spend a lot of time there at all. So you should be way more familiar than they are. So overhead and profit, they don't want to give you overhead and profit? No problem. No problem. What I'm hearing you say, I think, is that it's not complex enough, and it doesn't require enough coordination that would be required reasonably as a contractor in order to carry all this work out. Trades don't overlap on each other. So I think you think that I can pretty much go there all in one day with all the tradespeople and get it all done kind of all at the same time, pretty much, right?
They push us on the 3 trades a lot. Like no overhead profit, there's not 3 trades here.
Well, you know, and the 3 trades that's actually an old rule that's mostly obsolete that a couple of insurance companies are still hanging on to.
Still hanging on here.
And I like it when they do, because if I did my inspection right, there's no way that it's just a 1-trade job. There's no way, no way, no way. And people call me on a roof repair. That's way more than a roof repair. You know, let's talk about that for a second. You know, just the bouncing ball a little bit. Roof repair, okay? Shingles are missing, you know, or a flat roof. You look at flat roofs at all around here? Okay, good. So, and when you look at those flat roofs, aren't they mostly multi-layered? Like, or aren't they usually old? What do you find underneath them? Anyway.
You mean, on the flash, you got, sometimes you got layers, you got insulation.
So you got mod bit, what's underneath?
Yeah, you got, oh yeah, ballast.
Fiberboard, tar
Ballast.
gravel, yeah. Deck, metal deck, you know, cement deck,
Concrete.
gypsum, concrete deck, right? So, all right, the first thing you need to understand, residential or commercial, doesn't matter. It's illegal, okay, to do any roofing project where you don't go all the way down to the deck. Most of us probably know that, but that just basically means, you know, all those layers now have to come off. Doesn't matter how many of those layers were there previously, they all have to come off. Now, the only type of roofing is allowed to, 2 types actually, where you're allowed to go over top. There's metal, which there's certain types of metal that you can use to go over top. But you have to have the space in between the proper other thing, you know, proper metal roof. And then there's spray foam, where you can just go out and spray over top of it. I had a really good friend who's a spray foamer, and he's like, I will foam any roof and it will not leak. I don't care how wet it was before, it will not leak. I will stop that leak. I'm like, well, what about all the water that you trapped in the roof cavity, like if it was wet before? He's like, it don't matter, man, that'll dry. You know, like, I'm like, no. Because, so first, one of the rules is, in the code, is you must go all the way down to the roof deck. Okay, so anything there has to come off first. You cannot, that includes the felt, by the way. You're not allowed to go over top of the felt. It's got to come off. And you get that way you can inspect the deck, too, which is going to come into play in a second. But you need to be able to inspect that deck. That's why I like to go into the attic to look at the underside of the deck. But it's illegal to have any water-saturated underlayment at all. Anything, okay? So if it is one of those old roofs that has multiple layers, those layers are underlaid. And if they have moisture in them at all, that would be against the law to put a new roofing system above it. That's why you can't spray foam on top. It would be against the law. I know they're not going to put you in jail. Like one guy said, they put me in jail for that? They're like, no, dude, they're not going to put you in jail.
Is this where the plywood comes in, the sheeting?
Get ready to come in.
That's my biggest pushback.
So then the next item is illegal to go over top of a water-soaked deck. period. You can't do it. You can't do it. So if it's a metal deck, it's all rusted out, it's water soaked. You can't do it. It's illegal. You can't do it. That would be rust, and there's other things like rust, corrosion, and other things too. But you cannot do it. Okay? And also, the deck must be a solid, nailable sheathing. Has to be. Okay? So now, a lot of times though, when the pushback comes in, is you send them pictures of the wet decking that you have to replace as a part of the job?
I try not to. If the guys get it approved up front by giving the adjuster the courteousness of telling them, listen, we need to rip the whole deck. Typically they'll cover it. However, we do get pushback when, let's say, we have to just ask for 10 sheets. We can't use the word rot.
Because we don't pay for rot.
They don't pay for rot.
We don't pay
That's
for
part of
rot.
the structure of the house, homeowner's responsibility. But sometimes sometimes it's just rot. So I go back and forth with them until I can threaten them with the insurance commissioner because it has to be covered, because it has to be a nailable surface.
That's right.
Um,
But so
But they will
and
say
that-
no,
but-
and say it's not covered under policy, it will lag and lag and lag, and it's really frustrating for me.
yeah, I bet. Well, the best possible way is to know about it ahead of time, right? But if you had to redeck the whole thing and you didn't know about it until the job, I would stop the press. I would stop right there and put it to them right then and there. But it's water soaked deck would be another code in addition to your solid nailable sheathing. And the right away they say we don't pay for rot. So like in my initial estimate, like if it was an upfront type of thing, my footnotes would not say rot, it would say water damage, and I would have the codes to show the water soak. Never, and if they say we don't pay for rot, I say I never said anything about rot. It's water soaked decking and it's a non-nailable sheathing. You know, so it's two different things. So they said we don't pay for rot. Yes, they do. So because the non-nailable sheathing includes rotted wood, wet wood, warped wood, wood with too many nail holes in it. You know, if it's been replaced multiple times. But another way to get there too, though, remember, is the new codes require the 3/4 inch decking, right? If you have any trouble with that, like, so if it has half-inch deck, like what it used to be, and if you find just, my friends, just one wet spot, okay, just one little wet spot, then you got to cut out at least that part of the deck, don't you? Because it's illegal to have water-soaked deck. So you have to at least replace that one sheet at least, right, or half sheet or whatever it is. But once you've done that, you've exposed the roof cavity, so the whole deck has to be brought up to code. Because you can't go back with half-inch decking.
Or they have to get
Because the
trucks
code
scratched
requires
for plywood.
3/4 inch.
We're gonna be doing a lot of plywood, huh?
You change it 3/4 now on 1607?
Oh, happy day.
Took us all the way up to 2 o'clock to get Scott excited.
Oh, shit.
All right.
Wait, the whole time you're saying that, I was thinking, so you got a flat roof, right? And you can't have any moisture trapped.
Yeah, I've got more.
Well, I saw the video you did when you did the
Yeah.
bore test
Uh-huh.
on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
Theoretically, isn't like 75% of those roofs gonna have moisture trapped because you have layer upon a layer? You get these huge commercial buildings that, you know, they've gone 30 years and they keep patching and patching and patching, going over
We'll
and
just
over.
change places because you got it.
Right?
You could have taught this part,
Well,
right?
we know that.
Seriously, it's true.
Yeah,
Condensation.
You're backing up what I'm saying, man. It's there.
And there's a moisture test you have too, correct, in the industry where you could,
Well, there's the ultraviolet, well, you can either core bore or you
Core bore,
can do a flare ultraviolet camera at night to go over, fly with on a drone or even not a handheld.
Yeah, you can just
And
use a
it'll
handheld
pull
clear.
up where it's evaporating, which that creates heat, which is picking that up, the evaporation of the moisture.
but there's huge money in
But
that.
any insulation that gets wet,
Thank you, man. I mean, it is a gold mine. I
Chad,
mean, and that is just putting it mildly.
Yeah.
so any flat roof, so you puncture a flat roof, boom, water gets inside, and obviously you walk around, you can feel the squunchy on the ISO. Now, in order to replace that, a lot of times these guys want to go and say, we're just gonna cut this bad area out, and then replace that ISO, get back up, and then do a patch.
Yeah, that's hardcore.
Right, so now that's gonna fail. It's not the same as the existing roof.
Gotta
prior
go
to-
down, yeah, you have to go down to the roof deck at that point because the water's so saturated underlayment.
Right, so you don't know where it went.
And I would come at them with 5 reasons, if I could get them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of one different thing, because they'd always have their, like my friend with the flashing, they always have their little rebuttal that they use. Sometimes it doesn't even make any sense, the things that they say, they're brainwashed and they come back with this one little reason, no, it's this or no, it's that. So I like to nail the coffin shut, 3, 4, 5 different reasons. So in that case, with multiple codes, not just the one, but multiple reasons. And then, by the way, in that situation right there, what does the deck itself look like? Because if all that underlayment, like they say, oh, just go all the way down to the deck in that one little area. What does the deck look like? You know what I mean? Is it a metal deck that's all wet? I mean,
And what's the weight of that? So you have, 8 layers of decking with water trapped, and you're gonna go back
Very-
over that?
very
And then you
good
get
question.
snow on top of that?
and also, by the way, what's the R value?
Because now it's lost, any insulation gets wet, loses its R value, therefore
That's
so how
it.
far did that go?
It compromised the R value.
And it's gonna
Absolutely.
compromise what happens to the water.
Code.
How far did it go? And see, for all this to work though, and this is where everybody's like, oh, every roof is wet. Yeah, sure it is, but that doesn't mean it's a claim. You have to have a cause of loss, and you have to have direct physical damage. It has to, somewhere. Somewhere there has to be direct physical damage to something. Meaning if it's a hail claim, you have to have hail damage to something. Okay, you can't just say, oh, it's wet inside, so we have a claim. If it's wind damage, you have to have wind damage to something to start with. Okay, so if it's like a shingle, a good example, I recently had one where it was a tornado hit and also had hail with it. But it was a tornado, it was a wind damage claim. It was a big flat roof, and these big AC equipment, other condensers came up off the top of the roof, did somersaults, and punctured the membrane in various places, and that's what they try to say. They try to say, you can just patch it and do this or that. And so the pushback there was, well, everything's wet down underneath. They sent an engineer that said, nope, nothing's wet. I mean, I have this on YouTube, bro. I went out there with in the middle of the day with a handheld FLIR camera, and it's just lit up like a Christmas tree. I mean, hello, like it doesn't need an engineer to come out here and show you that, but so that's easy to push back and buy that. But there was an easier way with that because they had it written up as a wind damage claim. There's hail all over this roof. All over the roof is hail damage everywhere. And so once it's escalated to an engineer, it's tough, without having to get your own engineer report, which should usually work because their engineers suck with their cut and paste stuff. Yours should be great, with actual documentation. Engineers like to document negligence and mechanical damage, where, this was damage that was caused by the AC guy, or this was, this should have been replaced years ago. This was leaking and duct taped over here. Okay, yeah, great, it all was. Does the duct tape have any hail on it? I mean, in my mind, I don't care how bad it was before. I don't care about any of those other reasons. None of those reasons are even relevant. So all those pictures that they take of all those other things, those things aren't relevant unless you're also submitting pictures of the hail damage. You see, they're just muddying up the waters.
Well, when you see rubber roof, you see prior repairs or, different parts are older
Sure.
or newer.
Sure.
I mean, most times I run into this, they've already ruled it, prior issues.
Yeah, it's easier for them to do if they go out and see all those issues, So if I meet with an engineer, I say, yeah, no, I do see those, and I'm documenting those issues. In fact, I'm gonna use triangles with my chalk for mechanical damage. And I'm gonna use squares for old damage, should have been replaced years ago, negligence. Let's do multiple colors too, just so you don't get confused. And then I'm gonna do circles for hail damage. So if you submit your pictures with all that other garbage, just know I'm submitting pictures of all of it too, but I'm gonna tell the insurance company, this is mechanical damage, this is negligence, this is hail. You know what I mean? So they do that a lot, but Where was I at before I went? Let's see. Somewhere before I went down the engineer path.
So what do you do when you get a kickback on the sheathing and like they'll just tell us like guys we're not paying.
Yeah, that's right.
Like in the story, do you have to get the homeowner involved or?
Yeah, okay, so that's where I was. That's perfect, Albert. Perfect question, perfect time. You brought me back, okay? All right, so if you get down into the deck and you find the wet spot, right? That wet spot's got to be cut out and replaced. You got to bring it up to R value. The deck's got to be up to code. The roof cavity's got to be up to code. So that means for residential jobs in this area, you need an R38. You need an R30 for commercial jobs. Am I correct? Anybody want to correct me on that?
Yep.
This is the right area for that? Okay. That climate zone, so climate, depends on which climate zone you're in. And that is in, I believe, about 100% positive, 98% positive. So you would have to add ISO board then to bring it up to code, right? So if you find the wet spot ahead of time before the build, and you document it, and you show the adjuster, and they said, no, we're not paying. Or rod or whatever. They're saying essentially that it's the homeowner's responsibility, right? So at that point, I would get the codes and try to submit it into the desk adjuster. Like if I can't convince that adjuster with the actual code documentation, I would submit the code at the next level with the desk adjuster. I'll go, because I'm assuming again, you're talking about the field adjuster.
Yeah.
So I would, right away, before the build, get her to submit it into the desk adjuster with the code documentation. So again, doesn't, you could say it, she could say it, we're not saying rot. Okay, I don't care if you pay for rot or not. Does the policy have ordinance and law coverage or not?
Right.
That's the question to really ask. Does the policy have ordinance and law coverage? Because if it does, then I could submit to them, she can, the office can, you could submit on city letterhead.
Now we could ask that without him accusing us of he goes, are you a PA? Are you acting like a PA? I could ask him that if they have O&L on that?
Well, the homeowner has to ask.
I think you're I was almost thinking this, I almost said it, you're delving into policy or coverage.
Yeah, it's a
you're
fine
saying
line,
that,
right?
But you can have the homeowner ask, but I would submit to you, and I'm not a lawyer, right, so take it for what it's worth. I think you're well within your rights to ask that question, because I just had to have my windshield replaced in my car recently. You start with, you call it the insurance company, you just take it to SafeLine. Contact SafeLine. See the commercials everywhere. SafeLine repairs, because you think about this. Makes a lot, yeah. Before they're going to make any repairs, what are they going to do? Aren't they going to verify your what?
Insurance.
Coverage. They're going to verify your coverage. You go to the doctor, what are they going to do? Dentist,
Issue insurance.
chiropractor.
What's your deductible?
I don't care who it is, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that vendor, that service provider, if you will, i.e. contractor in this instance, has the right to determine if they have coverage. You know what I mean? And if you go back to that introductory email, if you've actually been successful with that part, not saying you didn't try, but if you're successful at getting your client to send at the welcome part when you first sign them up, to send that email out to the agent, do I have OL coverage, can you copy Stan, my contractor, because if you do that, then you can say, hey, no, the agent told us in the beginning they had OL coverage, do they not have the coverage? What's going on here? Oh, we don't pay for rot. Well, that sounds like a policy coverage issue to me, you know what I mean? Because it's not, we're not talking about anything, we never say anything about rot. Water soaked decking, that's a building code. Water saturated underlayment, that's a building code, just stick right with those building codes. If they don't agree, fine, get them to pay for what they're gonna pay for, but don't build, supplement. Go to the inside desk adjuster, and you don't have to bring up that the original field adjuster even shut you down. Maybe they don't even know, maybe the desk adjuster doesn't even know that the first adjuster actually shot it down. Maybe they don't even know that. Go right to it. Hey, I got City of New Haven says that they require 2018 Connecticut State Code. 2018 Connecticut State Code requires the 2015 IRC, and the codes that come into play, I've got them nice here for you as attachments on page such and such and such and such. Here's the pictures of the damage. So if they shut you down at that point, I'll say, okay, well, I'm gonna give it a try. Because my job is to perform all repairs that are prescribed by you. So I'm gonna go give it a try. I'll let you know if anything comes up. And then I would go out there and open up a can of worms, literally. I would open up a can of worms. Like I would get, if at all possible, and it's up to your diligence and how much work you put in and time you spend with it, how much time you even think it's worth spending for this, right? But you can do this. I've had many times where I've been successful in doing this, and that other people, clients and students have done this. Many stories at events where people have done different things. Get the building department out there to shut your ass down. Can you do that? Can you get the building department to shut yourself down?
That's a good idea.
Call them out yourselves. Hey, come on,
Yeah.
shut us down.
Because why do you need the building? Why do you need the client? You do need the client if you're going to talk
Yeah.
about policy coverage stuff, right? But in that case, I've got more power from the contractor, right? I go down to the building department, you know, like, hey, Mr. Building Adjuster, I know you know about this code here in the water soaked decking and the two. They probably don't. They probably don't have any idea what they're doing. So you got to show it to them, interpret it to them, and say, look, this is what the adjuster is requiring, and from the insurance company saying that they won't be just great. Oh, that's great, thank you. You might be able to get them to write something up on letterhead, but even easier than that, because they don't like to do that.
No, they don't. They don't want any part of
They
that.
don't wanna get.
It's like a liability thing.
Which is so crazy.
Because it's your job,
But
yeah.
it's much easier just to get them to shut you down.
Yeah.
Just shut me down. Don't tag me, baby.
I got a condo right now in the battle with insurance companies, multiple layers, 3 tab, and they hire Sedgwick, or not Sedgwick, JSL.
Oh, yeah. I love beating them up. dude.
They hire JSL
Oh.
to say it's repairable. I'm like, no, it's multiple layers, and I
I
got.
think I want to make a JSL museum.
Oh, it's freaking terrible. So I'm gonna use, I'm gonna have, all right, we're gonna do your, I'm gonna run the repair, and then come shut me down. That's gonna be perfect. Come on, here's your red tag, here's your red tag.
Oh, man.
Shut me down.
I mean, literally, we could go on and do exercises for a couple hours. We'll take a break and I'll have you think of some things, but like, you can think of anything and throw it at me. I don't give a damn. Because just about anything could be put in that bucket where it's, okay, I'll go give it a try. But that, you see where the building code gives you the advantage, man?
Yeah.
Oof. Phew, I love just snapping with those building codes. Power. It is, man. It really is. It's law. And it's required everywhere. I have people say, well, there's no building codes here. Shoot, I don't care where you are. Those building codes are law. So, take a little 10-minute break. One more thing.
How do you take it?
Thanks for joining.